What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for Marvel Studios' The Marvels. So this is the latest movie in the MCU Marvel Cinematic Universe that is basically the sequel to Captain Marvel that came out in 2019. And this movie basically follows the story of Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel, well, Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. And it basically picks up where the Miss Marvel television show left off. If y'all never watched the show, then you won't understand really the premise or how this movie kind of kicks off, where at the end of Miss Marvel, she basically, her bangle activates in a way, and she ends up switching places with Carol Danvers. And we just kind of get left off with that. But we kind of figured that that's where it was going to lead into with this film right here. And basically, it brings all of these women, or these, well, Kamala's a girl, and these other two women together because their powers are very similar, and it allows them to pretty much switch places with each other every time they use their abilities. And at first it could come off as a conflict because it's like, okay, how do we maneuver this? How do we make this work? Because we have these light-based powers that are definitely beneficial to us, but if we keep switching places like that, it's going to hinder us at the same time. But I like how, in a way, they actually was able to make it work and how it played itself out in the ongoing story. So that's pretty much the premise of it. And they also had to fight off this villain by the name of Danvers, who has Ronan's hammer, and I'm still trying to figure out how in the world he got Ronan's hammer. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to restore life to their dying planet called Hala that was destroyed, well, so to speak, or is decaying, and they're going to different places in order to get resources or different energy type of resources in order to bring life back into their planet. And they're going about it in very sinister like ways. Now, keep in mind, if you've watched Miss Marvel, you know she had one bangle. If you've seen the trailers, you know that Danvers has the other bangle. So she's able to do these things with that one bangle, but imagine what she's probably going to be able to do if she has both of them. So now that you pretty much get a premise of it, I'm gonna go through my pros and my cons, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This movie actually exceeded my expectations. I'm not gonna say my expectations were too low, but they definitely weren't high either. They were pretty much mid-level for me when it comes to this, because for myself and a lot of other people, the first Captain Marvel movie left a kind of a sour taste in our mouth. It wasn't the best of the Marvel movies or the MCU movies that have come out. And it was probably one of the weakest, although it did make $1 billion. But this one, in my opinion, was better because now they've given Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, a team to work with. And that's actually where I'm going to start off here as far as my pros go. And that's Carol Danvers in this movie. Her character development was so much better in this movie than it was in the first one. In the first movie, I think it's just how she was written, but in the first movie, Carol Danvers just kind of came off as dull, kind of stoic, kind of robotic. She had no life to her. She was kind of soulless, kind of cold. She kind of didn't want to be around people. She wanted to do her own thing. She was like really independent. It even carried over into when she was in Endgame a little bit as well, where she was kind of doing the same thing, because it's like she knew she was the most powerful being. There, she was their most formidable weapon against Thanos. But I like how in this movie she has two, I guess you can say, sidekicks that are helping her in order to accomplish a more major goal, and that is taking out this threat that could definitely. Another thing that I liked is that they made Carol more likable. They made her more relatable. Like when I was watching the movie, she had some things that she was saying where people in the audience were actually responding in laughter to what she was saying, and not in a forced kind of way. So whoever wrote this movie, and I think Nia DaCosta, who was the director, actually wrote this movie as well. Shout out to her, because the character, how she was written in this one, she was more human. She was more relatable. She didn't, like I said, she didn't come off as a B word, so to speak. And it's crazy because I think that's how Captain Marvel is written in the comics anyway, which is a lot of people really don't gravitate towards her character because she's not relatable, she's not likable. But in this one, she has some development there where you can't say, okay, I do like her. I like her now. Hopefully they keep her character like this going forward, depending on which direction they do go with her character. The next person I wanted to talk about was Monica Rambeau, or as I have nicknamed her, Monica Yambo. y'all can hang on to that one or throw in a passion alert if you want to. But this one, Monica, now she has powers. If you watched WandaVision, she was able to get and develop her powers when she went through that energy field. And that's how she ended up developing her powers and her abilities. One thing I liked about in this movie is that they still talked about the conflict that her and Carol Danvers had with each other, because there was a moment where in WandaVision, I think that they talked about her with Carol Danvers and she never really spoke about it. She kind of came off as standoffish about it. And it's mainly because of stemming what happened in the first Captain Marvel movie, where Carol Danvers said she will be back sooner than later and everything like that. And because she felt like it was a promise broken, I'm about to say a real actress name, Monica Rambeau, felt some type of way about it. And I like how in this movie we finally get a chance to see Monica's abilities. Like when we kind of saw a little bit of it in WandaVision, but it wasn't her full abilities. And if you've read up on Monica Rambeau's character, she is one of the most powerful beings in Marvel. As a matter of fact, she was technically the first Captain Marvel, and she has so many great abilities that hopefully that in the next few movies that she's in, they get to flesh her out even more. I think like this was a good introduction to her powers and the abilities that she has, but I think that in the next movies or whatever it is that they do going forward with her, that they'll be able to flesh her out even more. The next character we're going to talk about who rounds out the team is Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel. Now, I know a lot of people did not watch her show. A lot of people probably didn't feel, anything to want to watch her show. But I said to myself, I actually liked that show, mainly because I love the family aspect of it. I liked how her origin story kicked off. How she basically was working to train and develop her abilities and her powers, and she did play a very good role in this movie. She was definitely the comedic relief. She definitely, every line that this actress played or hit, every mark was spot on. Like every time that she did something, whether it was some type of a mannerism or some kind of a look, or even how she said something, it always garnered a laughter from the audience. And that's just how she is. Of course, she's a big fan of Captain Marvel. That's how she pretty much came up, with her name. And she's always been a big fan. She's always wanted to meet her. And now that she's met her, now she gets to fight alongside her, which makes it even better. And also shout out to the actress that plays her, because she's a huge Marvel fan. She even actually has her own comic book now for the Ms. Marvel run, where she wrote it. So she actually has the actress who plays Ms. Marvel actually wrote a comic for Marvel Comics for Ms. Marvel. So she's really invested into this role, and she did such an amazing job. I would basically say, in my opinion, she was one of the best parts of the movie. Like, she definitely had the heart, she had the charisma, she had the comedic timing. So I think that's definitely how this all played. If I had to break it down with all the characters, I would say Kamala Khan definitely had the charisma. I would say that Monica was definitely the heart and the soul of the team, and that Carol was definitely the strength. If I had to break it down in those kind of categories, I would say that's exactly how I would describe all three of those characters in just a couple of words or less. The next thing I wanted to talk about was how they did the switching of the powers thing. I love that in one of the scenes, and this is like a small little spoiler, it's not too much of a spoiler, but it was a scene where they're on the ship and they're practicing on how to switch their powers. Like, they're doing little things like, throwing the ball up and down and, switching their powers and doing double dutch. It was like watching three friends come together after not seeing each other for a long time, and they're getting caught up. I like how they did that. And, that's something that, you would see friends, especially three women or three females, come together after they probably hadn't seen each other in a long time, or maybe they just wanted to catch up for whatever reason or another, and just have a good time. I like how they did that and how they fleshed that out. And then when they used it to the test, like put it to the test as far as them switching their powers, I like how they did that, which leads me into the next thing that I like of the fight scenes. The fight scenes were so well done in this movie, and I like that in one of the fight scenes they didn't use too much music. Like, they used subtle little music notes here and there, but they didn't use too much of it. They let the audience be immersed with what was going on in the scene without the distraction of the music. Not saying that the music, if it was there, would have been too heavily distracting, but I like that because it was in an enclosed space and it wasn't around a lot of other things, that they allowed the fight mechanics to move around without the use of extra sound as far as background music. I have to admit, some of the stuff they were doing as far as the fight choreography was amazing. I don't know how much of it was practical, but I'm willing to bet there was a lot of wire work used, so it could have been practical as well. But some of the maneuvers they were doing was like, my God, like, they are going in. So I would say that the fight sequences in this one are definitely more better than the first one, because the first one, Carol was mainly using her powers to fight a lot of the times. But because of their abilities where they could switch, and if they use their powers, they would switch and probably be in places that they didn't want to be, especially when they first discovered that they had these abilities. It made them have to rely on their physical strength as far as punching and kicking, and not using their abilities and their powers so much in order to accomplish the goal, which I really, really did enjoy. The last pro that I have was the costumes. I really, really loved the costume designs that they went with. I like how they started off showing their original costumes in the beginning of the movie, and then something happens in the movie where they go to another location and they get these brand new costumes that they wear for the rest of the movie. I really like how it was done. And some people may not pick this up, but there was in the scene where they get the new costumes, Monica has the wings. Now, if y'all look at a picture of Monica Rambeau in the comics, she wears like a suit that's like a one suit that has the top part and the pants, but she also has these wings, like these sheet wings, so to speak, I guess, to help her when she flies. And they kind of showed that a little bit in there, but it's crazy because she was like, you know what, I can't maneuver like this, so I'm just trying to take these sheets off and just kind of toss them to the side. I kind of wish they would have left that in there, because then that would have really completed the set on top of her having the eye mask. But either way, the costume design in this movie looked really, really good. Monica and Kamala, in my opinion, had the best looking costumes out of all of the three. Nothing against Carol Danvers, but I believe they had the two of the best looking costumes out of the three of them. Now that I've gotten out of the pros, you know what? There's actually a couple more pros that I have to give. The side characters. And you had Nick Fury in there. I wasn't expecting Nick Fury to do much in this movie, because really, when you look at it, the movie is really about these three women. These two women and this young girl. So I already knew going into this that Nick Fury wasn't going to have much to do. I will say I liked his character more in this movie than I did in the first Captain Marvel movie. And hands down, I just love the Khan family, Kamala Khan's family. I love that they incorporated her mother, her father, and her brother. If y'all saw the show, y'all know how comedic they were as well. And it also gave you an insight of what it's like inside of, I guess you can say, a traditional Muslim family, and how tight knit they are and how much they care for their daughter. But they also had some comedy in there as well with them. As a matter of fact, like I said, all the comedy for the most part in this movie that's in the movie comes from Kamala Khan and her family. Like, for the most part, most of the laughs that you're going to get is from her family and her. But I kind of expected that going into it, because I watched the Miss Marvel show. Now that I've gotten through the pros, I'm gonna go through the con, and believe it or not, I only got one con. And this one is kind of a spoiler. There was a scene in this movie where they had a musical number. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, where and why did they put a musical number in here? I was like, what did this kind of turn into? And the thing is, one of the characters in the movie actually asked that same question, like, what did this just turn into? I don't know if that was just like them saying that because they feel like the audience would ask the same question, but I sure did. When when that came up, I was like, what is going on here? I didn't know what to expect, from that scene. But basically, it's because this city that they went to, the way that the people communicate is through song. So it's like they're always living their lives in the form of a musical. So that's why they were singing, but it just felt kind of off into me probably one of the more, if not the most cringiest part of the entire movie. If they would have took that part out, I probably would have no cons with this movie. But that right there kind of like, for me. I was like, yeah. I'm glad that they eventually stopped singing and they just began to just talk like normal, regular people, I guess. But that is going to conclude my review for the Marvels. Like I said, this movie actually exceeded my expectations. I know there's a lot of people going around online. They are just completely bashing this movie. Like they're going in like with their intense hate for the movie. I have no idea why that is, but again, that is their opinion. But some of them, I'm gonna be honest, are hating on it because they got a grift. I'm just being completely honest with you. A lot of them are hating on the movie so they can get that grift money and get a certain audience to watch them. I'm just being completely honest with you, but y'all don't have to hear from me. Just go look at some of the stuff that some of them say and realize they all kind of sound the exact same. But this is just my take on this movie. Definitely better than the first one. That's a given. Like the first one, if this played out like the first one, I would have just as many cons as pros, if not more. Because when I watched that first one, it was a hard watch. But this one I was able to get through. And also in traditional Marvel Studios or MCU, I guess you could say routine, make sure y'all stay for the mid-credit scene. And I'll tell you right now, it's only a mid-credit scene. There is no post-credit. So after the mid-credit scene shows up, y'all can leave the theater because there's nothing else to see. But with that being said, y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Is this a movie that you would go and see, or will you wait for it to come on streaming and watch it that way? Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Potentially be a huge hindrance going forward.